All right, my name is Corrie Morales, and I am an IFBB Pro figure competitor, and I've been bodybuilding for nearly 10 years now. I've been a pro for just about 3 years, and yeah, that's about a little bit about me.
How'd you actually get into bodybuilding?
My husband, who is also a professional bodybuilder, he did powerlifting when he was in high school. And then when he and I were in college together, he got me weight training with him. I had grown up playing, sports in high school. And so, it was just a way for us to spend more time together. And then I saw, in the gym when we were a young married couple, some ladies that were training for competitions, and I thought that was pretty cool. But I thought, maybe later on after we have started our family, we have kids, because we knew we wanted to do that pretty soon. And yeah, one of his, in addition to being a bodybuilder, he's also a surgeon. So when he got into private practice, one of his first patients was a trainer that competed at the NPC level for many years. And I decided that our girls were old enough and it was time to actually try that bucket list. I'll just do one show kind of thing. And then here I am almost 10 years later. I will say that I would call myself a type A, personality in that I'm very driven, very goal oriented. So that's one thing, always wanting to see if you can do more or do better at whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish. But really, in that first show, of course, I dieted down a lot and I was in the best shape of my life. And then I was ill prepared for the post competition phase and ended up, like a lot of folks that are new to the sport and don't really understand how it works, gaining back all the weight that I lost. And I was very unhappy about that, of course. And another thing, too, one of the things that probably a lot of competitors will tell you about the sport is that you make friends along the way. So I had already made friends in that first competition, and they were tapping me saying, "Hey, let's do a show together. It'll be fun." And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, fun, right?" But I was like, okay, it probably would be kind of fun. And then if I do this again, then I can do better at maintaining myself post show. And then, of course, there's always the hope that you'll just do better, perform better at the show, place better, that kind of thing. And then in that second show, I actually placed fourth in my class. And so I think that was the hook. Just, actually finally getting a trophy, getting, a medal, whatever it was. And yeah, and then my husband decided that he wanted to jump into a show. And as they say, the rest is history, right?
And with your kids, having kids and then, just doing bodybuilding, there's so much commitment involved.
Mhm.
What when did it kind of feel right to you? You kind of said, the kids were old enough, but like when did it really feel right to you as far as okay, I finally have the time? Because most people, it's always like the excuse or the reason people bring up for doing it, not doing something is like, the kids are, they're in sports this season and then, then it's summer break. So we have to go on vacation and then they're back to school. So, maybe I'll do it, around winter, but then it's the holidays. Like, when did it finally
Right.
just be like for you, okay, it's time to actually do this?
That's a great question because you're right. There's always an excuse to be had, and there's never really a good time for anything that we want to do. And it's a matter of prioritizing the things that are most important to us. I will say from the get-go, my husband was very supportive, and so we both went into it knowing that he might have to help out a little extra with the kids, and he was willing to do that, and has always been willing to support me in that and help with the kids. But it was them needing less of that hands-on, like I have to bathe you, I have to like get you ready for bed, I have to prepare all your meals. Like they were able to do some of those things for themselves. Actually, at the time, I was working full time, like a full time job, and just having also someone like hired help part time that helped with our girls, like picking up from school and whatnot, was helpful in that moment. And of course, now they're teenagers, and so they don't ever even want to be around us at all. So I can do whatever I want whenever I want.
When it comes to science-backed supplements that taste great, 2NS is your one-stop shop. They truly maximize quality by making their own supplements in-house. With over a combined 90 years of experience, 2NS's team of industry experts has a commitment to research, quality, development, and innovation. The body is sacred, so give it the best. Check out all 2NS has to offer at secondnaturesupplements.com. That's 2ndnaturesupplements.com.
And 10 years ago, it was definitely, I feel like bodybuilding, it was a little bit different compared to now where it's like kind of glorified over social media so much. And like so many more people, I feel like, are getting into it for different reasons other than just for getting into the sport. Was there any, in your circle, whether that be family or friends, was there anybody who was like kind of questioning or doubting, like, for you, like, are you sure you want to do this? It seems like maybe a little bit extreme to some people, like anything like that.
I actually did not have a lot of that. Thankfully, everyone was very supportive, and I think also a little bit naive to it because we had not really been around the sport of bodybuilding. And to your point, I think it was still a little bit less mainstream. Like it does get a lot of play in social media and some more in the mainstream news than it ever did before. So yeah, back then I would say we were probably a little all naive to how all encompassing it could be in taking over your life. But again, everyone was supportive, and my parents knew that I had always been again. Into some type of athletics or staying active, and I just before I started bodybuilding done several like cons, and so I think it just felt like sort of another personal goal like that.
For those first 7 years of competing,
Mhm.
was you kind of mentioned you have like that personality that you just want to kind of know what you're capable of doing. You want to try your best at something and do your best and know that, you did your best. But was going pro and was going, as far as you can in the sport, was that the goal, or was it just kind of to just see what happened?
I would say it was more the latter. It was like, see what happens. I started my first couple shows as a bikini competitor, and then having played soccer growing up, I felt like I was already at the top end, maybe even a little too much legs wise, for a bikini. And the funny thing is if I would have stayed right where I was, bikini probably would have come up to where I was. But that's another story. So I decided to move up to figure. And then, of course, that really did involve bodybuilding because I didn't have as substantial of an upper body, so it was a lot of back development, shoulder development, and even to still building my legs at that time and trying to stay, balanced top to bottom. And I didn't honestly speak that like I want to go pro for a while. It took me a while to feel comfortable and like I was competing at a high enough level in the NPC to try to go pro. And like my first national show, I think there are different schools of thought on it, but my first national show, it was really like, I'm not going to win. I'm going for the experience of it, to see what it's like, to see what these competitors really look like at this level, which, I mean, I guess some people might feel like that's a waste of time and or money, but I felt like I needed that to know like what I needed to do to really get there.
Being kind of in the sport for, 7 years before going pro, how did you see the amateur competition, I guess, um, kind of develop and change over time?
Well, you can definitely see from the winners at the professional level in that time was very early days of figure, I would say. And so you have people like Nicole Wilkins at the top who, Nicole Wilkins, as she competed and won at the Olympia now, probably would be challenged to win at the local level in an overall, just because the sport has progressed over time. And that's one of the things about bodybuilding is that everyone's constantly evolving and elevating their game. And so I did feel for a little while that it might never happen because I felt like I was always behind and everyone else is also racing and chasing. And like I couldn't quite make it, compensate and make up that distance. And so it felt kind of tough. And again, I almost did throw in the hat at one point and say like I'm done. And then that's actually where I found my current coach who was like, time out, wait, like you can do this. You've got the look. Let's work together. We can make it happen. And I definitely give her credit for seeing that potential in me and helping me to believe in myself.
You kind of mentioned the evolution of competitors, the evolution of the sport, the evolution of exercise science, and just general, knowledge of diet and exercise as far as, scientific research goes. Do you think that there will be a slowing down of like what you're going to see in 10 years from now is probably going to be drastically different than, 10 years ago? And do you think that there's ever going to hit that point to where the evolution rate just slows down a lot? Or you just think because we're getting so much more advanced as far as what we know, technology, all this different stuff, like it's just going to keep, the performance and the physique and everything is just going to keep getting better and better?
That's such an interesting question. And I wish I had a crystal ball to be able to really say what's going to happen. But I will say that I do think, I mean, we're all constantly, like you're saying, evolving and getting smarter, finding better ways to do things. I mean, I think there is a sort of a finite limit of the human body. I mean, you can only take off so much body fat. Um, and I feel like a lot of the divisions are really pushing that extreme right now. And I remember a couple years ago from the IFBB Pro League president a message about, kind of rein in, um, the muscularity of the different divisions and kind of keep a cap on it. And I don't know that we've seen that yet. Like I don't feel like that really happened when that messaging came out. Um, so I don't know what that means really for the divisions, but it does seem like, of course, they all keep getting bigger, across men's and women's divisions. And so I would like to see us to have standardized expectations for each of the divisions. And then, judging, of course, would be on, symmetry, on balance, on conditioning, on muscle fullness, and not so much of the who has the biggest muscles here on the stage, like no matter what. I mean, we'll see where that goes. So I guess I don't know if I even really answered your question, but I feel like, yeah, we'll keep pushing, but I don't know that the rate will accelerate because I'm not sure that it really can accelerate that much more.
And when it comes to like you mentioned the statement of kind of reining it in a little bit. Do you think that comes from a place of maybe like a publicity as far as let's put out there that we're trying to make it safer, we're trying to make it healthier? Or do you think it's like a genuine thing for the sport? Let's make it more, I guess, interesting for the sport. Like, do you think it was coming from one side or the other more?
I think it probably was intended to be a little bit of both because you're right, there is a safety component involved in that. And then there's also, too, trying to just keep the fact that there are multiple divisions that theoretically have different requirements of, the ideal physique, the ideal look for each of those divisions. And so if we can keep those better boxed in so they don't sort of all meld together, or there's not a need to create like whatever the new bikini would be because bikini is bigger than it used to be in muscularity terms, then I think it's coming from that place primarily.
Ready to take your supplements to the next level? 2NS is here to help. 2NS strives to help you attain the highest degree of health and performance. Combining cutting-edge science and the best from nature, 2NS gives fitness enthusiasts and athletes the fuel they need. Check them out at secondnaturesupplements.com. That's 2ndnaturesupplements.com. This episode is brought to you by Move Your Body Apparel, a Lexington-based, community-ran premium activewear brand that promotes the importance of daily movement. For the rest of the year, MYB is donating a percentage of every order to the Special Olympics of Kentucky. Save 20% off your first order with the link below or use code TWR20 online at mybapparel.com.
And do you think that more or less or maybe the same is better, as far as, like you said, kind of having that new division, having, something to make that box even more, tight? Those were what the judges are looking for, even more kind of well known and things. Or do you think, could there, I guess that's kind of like there already is that, like, overall as far as best look in a way kind of thing, but like, what do you think that bodybuilding is in a place to where it's like, this is um this is the best way it can be as having what it has now? Or do you think, like I said, more or maybe even less?
I think that some, like the newer divisions that we have are about making the sport more available to more people. Certainly, like bikini and men's physique, I feel like that's more of a, now don't get me wrong, there's still a lot of hard work that goes into those divisions, but it's a little more accessible to someone starting out weight training. It's more of a, a nice beach body look than it is like a hardcore, I've been lifting for 10 years, every day nonstop type of look, so I feel like having those divisions was definitely a way to grow the sport of bodybuilding and invite more people into it, and wellness too, creating a look that caters to more of that Brazilian ideal of beauty, or that physique that they've really promoted there for quite some time. And again, creating a space for more people to compete. I honestly am not sure how much more expansive and inclusive they could be. Um, we'll just have to see. I feel like we're in a good place right now with all of the different options and places, like a place for theoretically everyone to fit in.
And is there, just among, like, not necessarily everyone, but just generally speaking, kind of among the competitors and maybe even past competitors, is there any like negative feelings towards the new, is there any negative feelings maybe towards wellness or towards bikini or towards just even the certain new men's divisions? There's certain like negativity towards that negative mindset. Like you kind of said, it's more accessible. You don't necessarily have to be this hardcore person for 10 years in the gym every day,
Right.
just it's just a little bit different. Is there any kind of thing towards that?
The only thing that I've heard more recently is the Arnold Sports Festival's decision not to include figure and women's physique in the divisions that are competing in March of 2023. And I don't think that there's any ill will directed towards, say, like bikini or wellness as the new one, but I think they're very popular right now. And so their popularity potentially outweighs that of figure and women's physique. And I think the athletes that are competing in those divisions have really taken that as a sign to say, like, hey, we need to take over ownership of promoting our division so that we're not forgotten, and so that people see, yes, this look maybe takes more time and effort to develop, but it's worthwhile and can be done healthfully for many years. I mean, I've been doing this, like we've been talking about, for nearly 10 years. And if you do it the right way and you're smart about it, then it is a sustainable lifestyle. So I think it's more about, like, we need to take ownership over promoting ourselves in our division, and so that we don't get left out. But yeah, not so much like ill will toward any of the other divisions.
And is there any kind of like feeling of, I don't even know exactly how to say it, but like, trying to minimize the the divisions that maybe take longer to to grow into, the maybe the more the older divisions, is there any, not necessarily from the competitors, but maybe from, just from certain leagues or certain, you know, promoters or whatever, like, is there any, I guess, any benefit that you would see to doing that?
Any benefit to minimizing like the divisions you're saying that take longer for development?
Yeah.
Well, what I will say is if, a division is incredibly popular at the moment, then as a promoter, I would think, yes, you want that division competing at your show because it's going to draw in a lot of attention and a lot of people. And so I don't think they're intentionally doing it to like minimize the others. I think they're just trying to capitalize on the popularity of the certain divisions that are highly popular at the moment. And um, and I certainly don't fault the promoters. I mean, everyone's trying to, needs to make money, that sort of thing, and wants to bring the people what they want to see. So if they're saying they want to see bikini and men's physique, then that's what they're going to bring to the show. And again, that's the challenge that goes back to the competitors in those divisions that that maybe are seemingly less popular in the moment, or if you're a promoter and that was your division, then you have the opportunity then to promote that division. Like I know when the announcement about the Arnold came out, Chris Minnis is in a relationship with Boyana, and she's a very popular figure competitor. And he announced that he would have open figure at his Legion Sports Fest show in 2023, and that was a little bit of an answer to that Arnold announcement. And I certainly applaud him for that, and Boyana for being in the division, and for the two of them supporting it.
Yeah, it just seems kind of bizarre to have, such a big stage. It doesn't feel like that they're limited to kind of the number of divisions, or it doesn't feel like they're limited to like people wanting to compete there or anything. It just seems kind of like a bizarre thing to me to limit it, especially, because bodybuilding, it seems like that is the main thing there. So like, why not
Right.
showcase, why not try to attract, because people, women especially, are going to see those athletes, and some people are going to be inspired by those athletes, and
Absolutely.
not by
Yeah.
the other ones. So it's like, why not
Right.
give that a shot? But
Right. Well, in another space that I think that the Pro League has the opportunity to capitalize on, and there have been rumblings about like a Masters Olympia. I think the Masters classes are a great way to, we talked about sort of expanding the sport or how will it grow. That's actually a place where I feel like it has the opportunity to grow in those Masters classes. So you have people that want to continue to compete as they get older, keep having shows where, they've got 40, 50, even 60, age brackets, and those people will come. And those people are the people like me, I'll be empty nested in a few years. And so we have more likely than probably young 20 something year old people starting out in the sport, we have disposable income to where we can fly to these shows and, pay the money to stay in a hotel and compete. And so I feel like there's an opportunity there that I feel like the Pro League starting to see, talking about bringing back a Masters Olympia. And, I, as a Masters competitor, would love to see that trend continue.
and as far as, moving into the future of bodybuilding, with, with technology, um, kind of taking over the world, and so many different aspects um, of how we just live in the world. Is there anything that you've ever heard people talk about, or anything where it's like, because the world is becoming so technological, like bodybuilding maybe shifting, whether it be maybe judging more on a, I don't know, I'm not sure what to call it, like an artificial intelligence basis, or, competing kind of like in almost a virtual reality setting or whatever. Has there ever been anything you've heard where it's like bodybuilding in the future potentially shifting in a very dramatic way like that?
I haven't, but those are all interesting ideas. I think if there was a way to introduce more technology into, see, that's the thing. Like, you talk about, as just I'm thinking about responding, judging is a very subjective activity. But even if you build artificial intelligence around that, the rules that you build into the artificial intelligence will also be subjective. So I was thinking, oh, it's a little less subjective if you can measure this or that, the other. And it might be a little less subjective, but there would still be things that you would just in the programming to make it that artificial intelligence work that would give an advantage to something over something else. And again, that's subjective. So, no, I haven't heard of anything like that, like virtual competitions kind of thing. Um, those are interesting thoughts and ideas, and maybe we'll get there eventually. Um, how long that'll take, we'll see.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting to think like what the physical world will become in 50 years, just
Right,
because of things like the metaverse and augmented reality, virtual reality, things where, if you just keep up with that at all, it's almost scary to think like what is out there and what's on the way. And
right.
it's just weird to think. But in your own personal, kind of getting back to your own personal journey, whenever you became pro and you turned pro and what kind of like mindset shift did you have, or what kind of like I don't want to say necessarily like a lifestyle shift, but did you have any like lifestyle shifts to just like up the training, up the rigidness on that diet, or like anything like that, to where okay, I'm a pro now, it's kind of treat this like I'm a pro?
I would say yes, there was a bit of a mind shift, but I will say it actually, I felt like relieved a lot of pressure because when you're going to try to earn your pro card, it's like you have to place first at that national level show. Some are first, second, but no matter what, you're having to get that top spot or one or two top spots to earn the pro card. And I feel like once I turned pro, like, sure, I want to do the best I can, but my mind shift was really about I want to be the best version of me. And no matter what happens at the pro level, I just feel honored to be standing on this stage. There really aren't a lot of expectations from other people around me about how well I'm going to do. And again, being a master's turning into a pro, I'm not going to go out and beat Sydney Gillian. Like I have zero expectation of that for myself. And again, I just want to say like each time I step on the stage that I'm bringing my personal best to the stage. And the other piece of the mindset shift, I will say, was yes, treating it a little more respectfully and saying, I had already at that point gone to year-round coaching, so where, it wasn't just, okay, I'm in prep now, like it starts here, my coach has showed up, like kind of thing, but really reverse dieting, trying to hold true to that. That's the honestly hardest part of bodybuilding, in my opinion, is the reverse dieting, and then maintaining something year-round to where prep is not so severe. Again, it becomes more of a true lifestyle shift to where um, prep isn't an awful experience. I mean, yes, it's slow, controlled starvation because you're trying to shed body weight and fat, maintaining muscle, lean muscle mass, but it's just not as miserable as it was whenever I didn't have a more year round um, type mentality as an amateur competitor.
This episode is brought to you by Move Your Body Apparel, a Lexington-based, community-ran premium activewear brand that promotes the importance of daily movement. For the rest of the year, MYB is donating a percentage of every order to the Special Olympics of Kentucky. Save 20% off your first order with the link below or use code TWR20 online at mybapparel.com. This podcast is sponsored by Smoking Gun Coffee, a veteran-owned coffee company that strives to give back to those in need. Don't forget to use code TWR10 for a 10% discount at checkout.
And becoming pro, it's definitely like you're instantly entering a league of like so much tough competition. There's so many people who, even though it's crazy to think like to be a pro bodybuilder, you're in such a tiny fraction of the population.
Yes.
But once you get there, you're also surrounded by a lot of people. What is that like, and how do you continue to judge yourself, even if you don't get that outcome that you want at a show? What do you look at for, okay, this was successful, or maybe it wasn't as successful as I wanted, even if, like I said, it's not the placing that you wanted?
Right. It is really hard, to your point, to keep that perspective in mind that when you're surrounded by bodybuilders and your social media feed is full of bodybuilders and you're at fitness events and gyms all the time, that you really are the elite of the elite in terms of your level of fitness, and healthfulness. And it is really hard to keep that in mind and in perspective. But um, I feel like I've gotten better at doing that and trying to be less judgmental with myself. And there are a few people, that I hold close to me, that I feel like are very honest about what life looks like when you're not in that full on super shredded prep mode. And in terms of just placing and maybe not having the outcome like you would have liked, I suppose for me, my standards for myself are still somewhat low when I'm going into a show, because again, I have that mindset of I want to be my personal best, and I set another goal, but it's usually a fairly low goal, I will say. Like, I laughed about it a lot, but I competed at the Arnold Sports UK this year, and I honestly had those type of uh God, what do they call it? The like where you feel like you don't belong, the imposter
Yeah.
syndrome type mindset going in. Like, I do not belong here. Like, this is out of my league. But I tried to get rid of those thoughts. But my goal still was to be not last at the show. Like, I was like, I just want to be not last. And so I achieved that goal. And, I didn't go in thinking I was going to place first. And so I suppose that's a little bit of it too. It's like to have somewhat low goals.
Kind of managing expectations.
Yes.
Yes. Staying kind of um in a realistic point of view. I
Yeah.
think it's important to I think it's important, like, in training and in kind of leading up to, have like a strong belief and have a strong, I don't want to say like I don't want to say like an arrogance or anything, but like a really like good mindset about being confident in who you are. But kind of and a lot of people would probably disagree with me, but in the moment of competition, like, you've already, especially in bodybuilding, you've already like put all the work in. So like, why at that point have that arrogance, or have that attitude, or whatever you want to call it, ego about you?
Yeah. Or the stress of it. Like, actually, I was very much at peace and very calm heading out to the Arnold stage, which I would have thought I would have been a nervous wreck. But I was like, you know what? I just want to enjoy the experience. And this is the experience of a lifetime for me as a bodybuilder. And there was a lot of joy for that in me. And the other thing, too, like you're saying, maybe if the placing wasn't what you had hoped, like, let's say that I had ended up last and had not achieved my goal, I could have still looked back at my pictures from the last time I had stepped on stage and seen growth and development and change in my body, which, again, if you go back to, like, I'm just trying to be the best version of me, then that's a win. And I know it sounds maybe cheesy or cliche, but it's true. And just recently, I did a comparison of my pro debut to the Arnold package I brought, and I was actually like pretty surprised and very pleased with how far I've come in that 3 years time.
Yeah, and being able to kind of look back, especially over the whole course of that, you know, bodybuilding journey, it's just so cool, I think, to have that evidence of like, okay, this is what you can actually achieve if you're continuing to put in the work, consistent, and doing the things that you should be doing. Um,
Right.
because it's
And
just
have some
like,
patience.
yeah, it's so hard. I think it's so hard to, in a physical endeavor, it's so hard because, you know, there's really not that much you can do to build muscle any faster or to,
Right.
cut the fat any faster.
Right.
Unlike a lot of other things in life, like you could get lucky and, you know, hit the lottery. You can, invest in a company and, come out really quick on top. Or, you can really in so many different aspects of life, you can get success if you're either really good or really lucky really quickly. But in bodybuilding, you might jump out to a pretty good lead if you have good genetics, but like at the end of the day, you're still going to have to put in years of work. And it's just, the body is
Absolutely.
just one of those things that make you work.
Yep. You're spot on.
So moving forward into the future, what do you think is is the kind of the time when you say, okay, I've had enough of this, I've had enough, I've enjoyed it, but it's time to kind of hang it up. Do you have a plan, or do you just kind of play it by show or by year?
I've asked myself that because there are all the feels when you're going through prep. But this year, I would say, has been my best, and I'm hesitant to say the word easy, but just most enjoyable experience through prep. Like at the end of last year, I was feeling pretty tired. I was like, I don't know how much longer I want to do this. And then this year, the Arnold invitation happened, and that was a huge goal for me and kind of reinvigorated my passion to some extent for really working hard. So that was a nice experience. And then so at this point, I don't know when I might slow down or stop competing. The discussion around the potential Masters Olympia is very intriguing for me. I'll be 43 next week, and they're talking about it being like a 45 plus type thing. So maybe by the time they get it off the ground, I'll be right there at that qualifying age. And so I would love to do that if that becomes a reality. And even if it doesn't, like we've talked about, more and more shows I feel like are having more masters divisions, and I found some success in that realm. And so I would say, as long as my husband and I agree that it's something that we want to do together, or he's supportive of me doing it, then I love to continue to do it, as long as, again, I can do it healthfully. And as the kids get older and are out of the house, then I feel like it even becomes more viable for me to be able to spend time and focus on it. The other rewards for me, besides just my personal development, is people telling me that they find inspiration in what I do. I love that. Like, I would have never thought that anything that I might do or say, or the progress that I show and share, would be inspirational to others. But that's also very motivating for me. I mean, in one hand, don't want to let them down, but in other ways, I want to keep encouraging them. And so, yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to see where the Masters division does go, especially kind of like we were talking about before, with like an increase in research and technology and all these different things. Will that continue to kind of be pushed further and further back? Like, being this is definitely a reach, but like 100 years ago, being 45 was much different than it was today.
Oh, yeah.
So in 30 years, being 45 is going to be, you could probably say, even more different than it was 100 years ago. Just
Yeah.
it's going to be just rapid change as far as like, life expectancy, health expectancy, fitness,
Right.
expectancy, as far as, getting older and staying, fitter and continuing to be able to keep muscle mass and put it on and things like that.
The better and smarter we are about recovery, like to your point, like a Tom Brady who treats his body like a temple and spends a lot of time and money recovering. Yeah, 100%. You could totally take it longer and farther.
It was really good getting to talk to you. I really appreciate you coming on the podcast.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I really enjoyed the conversation and some very interesting and thoughtful questions. So very nice. I appreciate it.
And if you want to share your social media before you head out, you can go ahead and do that.
Yes, thank you. You can follow me on Instagram at Corrie Morales _IFBB Pro, Corrie, Corrie.